Afternoon and welcome to the Isle of Skye. So I've got a real problem with a place like this, as iconic and as beautiful as it is. You know, I'm not a big fan of shooting iconic locations, but of course I'm kind of betwixt and between, because you know, it is a beautiful location to shoot, don't get me wrong. I guess thankfully the light over the last couple of days hasn't been that great, but on Skye for the next few days, so it'll be interesting to see whether I succumb to some of the iconicness, which I'm sure I will, or whether I can find my own little slice of Skye somewhere, so should be interesting. First up, I'm going to go up the old Man of Storr, just for a bit of a bimble really. Well, good afternoon from atop the old Man of Storr. Well, actually not atop the old Man of Storr, because I've been kicking around over there somewhere. Yeah, as I expected, very beautiful. And I wish I could get more excited from a photographic point of view from iconic locations. It would certainly make the whole concept, the whole idea of getting images. Let me just try to get out of this wind. It would actually make the idea of getting images much easier, because you could just go to Google and go iconic images, and then basically spend 2 weeks hopping around them all, and there you go. And I know a lot of people do that, and I'm not saying that's a wrong thing to do, each to their own, and there are some beautiful, beautiful images that I've seen from this area, but it just doesn't get me enthralled. Now, of course, midday, flat light, and when it does come through, very harsh, so, you know, sunrise, will I come back up here for a sunrise? You know what, if we end up getting a sunrise either here or somewhere else, some nice light, you never know. But I just can't get myself enthused by it. I think it would be an image that I would take and I would say, nice image, and I would, you know, consign it to the depths on my hard drive. But that's just me. Come here, take lots of images, enjoy yourself. Beautiful place, and a nice hike up as well. Just don't be an idiot and kind of get selfies up on some of these peaks, what I've been seeing people doing. You know, that's how we clean the gene pool, basically. Right. So you never know. We might get an image from Skye at some, or from the old Man of Storr at some point, but at least my expectations from a photographic point of view, from a personal photographic point of view, have been met. Right. I'm going to wander back down again and get a cup of tea. Bit of a wet one today on Skye. So we're heading down to Nice Point now. Another classic, iconic sort of photo location, landscape photo location. So again, it'll be quite interesting. Now, given the weather that we're having today, the weather forecast for tonight, the weather forecast for tomorrow, chances of getting camera out, 0%. But I wanted to kind of come down here and just check it out. But again, even if the weather was nice, would I take an image? Again, a bit like what I was saying yesterday up in the old Man of Storr. Debatable, but yeah, so we're heading down to Nice Point now, in the rain. So I'm actually just reading one of the On Landscape magazines, fantastic digital magazine that I read, and I kind of a little bit on to what I was talking about yesterday, the old Man of Storr. You know, the fact that I kind of get up there and, you know, even if the landscape had have been, or the light had have been playing ball and I had have taken an image, I'm just not sure I would have connected with it. And I kind of thought about that, and I tried to kind of reconcile why I don't feel that kind of connection. It certainly would make my task perhaps a whole lot easier as a landscape photographer, but of course the landscape photographer in me, I really want to feel a connection to my images. And while those epic scenes of well photographed locations are beautiful, I just don't feel a connection. But I was struggling with that concept, because maybe I'm doing myself a disservice, and maybe I'm missing out on having some, you know, better, more iconic images in my portfolio. And interestingly, I came back and I was flicking through on Landscape magazine number 154, and came across a photographer in here, featured photographer of that magazine, Ross Browne. I'd never heard of Ross before. RossBrownePhotography.com. And his way of thinking and his images, bang, immediately connected to me and reinforced what I'm trying to achieve first and foremost with my own photography. Going after scenes such as this rather than going after the bigger, more epic scenes. Now, it's probably detrimental from a commercial sense. I say probably because I'm sure there are a lot of very well-known photographers out there who are applying a living following a very niche or very sort of, you know, smaller viewpoint type of photography. As you can tell, I'm even finding it difficult to articulate this whole thing, and I'm sure I'll flesh this out over the next couple of vlogs. But I just found it because I kind of came back and I was a bit downtrodden. You know, maybe I should be climbing back up the old Man of Storr 10 times in the next week and trying to get that one image. But then I came back and I read Ross's words and I looked at his images and I thought, those are the sorts of images I want to be taking. Those are the sorts of, you know, situations I want to find myself in. And so, never met Ross before. 99.999% sure he's never heard of me. But thank you, Ross, because you kind of reaffirmed that just little by little I'm going to carry on what I'm doing, because that, first and foremost, forget about any financial implications, forget about, you know, the job side of things like that, forget about social media, which I, you know, pretty much do anyway. It's about something that I can connect with, and just reading his words, looking at his images, yeah, so that's all I really wanted to say. So welcome to Clich Central. Again, don't get me wrong, these places are absolutely beautiful and everyone should come here and photograph, scratch that itch, because it is an absolutely spectacular landscape. Now, clearly this is a sunset location. Not to say you can't shoot it at other times of the day, but when in Rome and all that, just doing a little bit of a long exposure, 10 stop, 4 minutes. And the wind is actually quite calm. Last night it was blowing us around again till about midnight, then it calmed down, but this really is the calm before the storm, because by this time, 24 hours, the island's due 50-60 mile-an-hour winds for the next 48 hours, so that should be interesting in a van. I think my preference actually is to grab this shot and then I'm going to wander back the other way. I quite like now, it's not as stormy as it was last night, as I said, which is obviously good from a kind of stability point of view, but not so good from a mood point of view. I'm actually going to sort of aim myself this way. I quite like how the clouds kind of hugging the tops of the cliff faces here, so kind of going to scratch my cliche itch and then go and try to find something a bit different. So I brought myself over to the other side now. Cliche just wasn't doing it for me, so I'm not even sure we'll show it. Obviously not a lot of light, if any, but morning like this morning is a good chance just to kind of go through the various steps. I'm doing some kind of longer exposure stuff with, well, actually with a 4-stop, giving me about 13-15 seconds. So even though there's 99.9% chance of no keepers here, again, just that sort of mental and physical exercise of trying to see something, and also just going through the whole sort of workflow steps, you know, checking focus, checking sort of all around the frame. Just makes most use of a morning like this morning when there's probably not going to be any image keepers. And it's starting starting to feel like the kind of conditions I like to shoot in as well. There's just a cooler breeze blowing. The gulls are kind of really playing around. And a gannet down here. My favourite seabird, by the way, gannets. Beautiful. Very Nordic. Very Nordic. So yeah, so shooting with a 4-stop, horizontal composition, 18:135, but it's more from a workflow process exercise point of view than from a final pictorial sense. Just kicked some poo off the edge of the cliff. I'm sure in some countries that's good luck. Anyway, one of the things I love about being out in the landscape with the camera is kind of trying to work, well, basically trying to work stuff out in terms of the composition. Now, one of the things that was kind of rattling around in my head as I was pointing towards the lighthouse and other sort of big grand vista views, of which this probably is one, is it's perhaps easier to get a little bit lazy. You know, you rock up, and while there may not be tripod holes in the ground, you might even bring your camera or your phone out and check to see exactly where the composition was, and shuffle your feet left and right and get that in there and snap the picture and get a very nice picture. And of course, it can work out to be a very nice picture if you've got very nice light. But of course, when you start to play about with different compositions that maybe aren't as well known, then it's up to you to kind of try to work stuff out. And the one I've got here, I'm kind of in a vertical composition, and there's one bit that's really frustrating me. I've kind of moved sort of back along so I can use some of these sort of white rocks to pull me around, but the thing that's really annoying me is there's a break in the waves, a break in the water, sort of, it's a break in the water kind of about a third of the way into the frame, but then there's a gap in that break of the water. Now, the break in the water is carrying on, but I just don't have the visibility. I would probably have to be maybe another 10-15 foot out, and I think that's detracting a little bit from the scene, at least in my mind's eye as well. Now, we're starting to get a little bit of that moodiness go away. In fact, if anything, we're actually getting a little bit of light coming through. Yeah, so for me, that's one of the things I really enjoy, and it's kind of why I love to come across a scene that's a little bit more personal to me, because it just allows me to sort of work stuff out myself. Now, in this case, I just don't think it's going to work out, just because I can't get into the viewpoint. But at least it's a plus point, because I'm recognizing that that's at least one failure in the image. And in fact, that's going to be a subject that I'm going to talk about at some point, how it's frustrating, and it happens to me time and time again when I get back to the office, when I get back to the digital darkroom, and I only then notice a flaw in the image, and some of those flaws perhaps could have been rectified in the field. So another one of those little conundrums to play with. Brought myself along a little bit where I've got a lot more of the coastline in view, and again, it's another one of those little areas that's frustrating. Now, I can overcome it, and I probably will, by switching lenses. I'm on the 18-135, I'm at 18mm, and what's happening is there's a little dip in the rocks. Now, I kind of like the rocks to form a border at the bottom of the frame, and I'm not sure whether I'm comfortable with there being a gap there. Now, if I raise my camera down too much more on 18mm, I'll crop off the top of the cliff face. So I think this is probably going to be something that needs to be shot at about 16-15mm, which means the 10-24mm lens. Or maybe when I get it back into the digital darkroom, I'll prefer it with that little gap. But again, trying to get myself noticing these things in the field, that's this morning's exercise. Bit of a schoolboy error. Left all my replacement batteries back up in the van. So I didn't get a chance to play with the 10-24. Contemplating whether to run back up and get the replacement batteries, but see.